want to take a little time here to actually focus on how you do a setup where you have machining on both sides of a part and how you get it to line up. So let's take a look at this. What you see on the screen, think about this. I call them fixture boards. They could be anything. It could be a spoil board. Typically, it's going to be a larger piece of material. This may be clamped down, may be held with vacuum, whatever. The material's probably going to be something the tape sticks to well. If I'm going to use tape, for instance, tape does not stick well to MDF, but it does stick well to plywood, and it does stick well to things like melamine. So that's what this board is right here. Okay, the first thing I'm going to probably do is figure out where I'm going to put the blank on the table, and I typically just do a curve, just cut a curve around it, 30 thousandths deep or so, and I also machine pinholes. All right, so that's where the setup begins. Now let's go over and turn some pins on. So what's going to happen eventually those pins are going to go into play, and the board's going to go on top of it. Okay, let's break this down a little bit. So probably the first thing you're going to do is let's put some tape on here. The typical tape I would use that you see in the videos is 3M 9579, and I like the 1-inch size probably. It's not cheap, but it works really well. That particular tape has a synthetic rubber compound for the adhesive, and it works really well, and it doesn't leave a lot of residue. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to actually take put the tape on. Now, notice where the pinholes are. Right? Then we're going to come over here, and we're going to, there's actually two shapes here. Here's this, and if we look at this one, see that. Okay, now think about what happens here. If we ghost this, let's see if we can ghost this over here. If we ghost it, you can kind of see where things line up. See, the pins are down here, but we're not going to be using them yet, because what we're doing first is we're actually going to do the back side, and that's where the holes are. That's why they go here and here. So let's go back out here and render that. You see, that's why these holes are here and here, because when you flip it, they're going to line up. So the first thing I typically do is I start with the stock a little bit thicker, and then I face this, and we're going to talk about that over when we look at VCarve Pro, and I machine these two holes. All right, then that goes away. We turn the pins on, and then we take this blank and we flip it over, and if we ghost it, you'll be able to see it. See how the holes line up? So that's the key, is how you flip those. Now let's go over to VCarve Pro, and let's take a look at how you'd actually set this up. Now you understand the setup. Okay, let's see how we actually create this setup in VCarve Pro. All right, what I've started out with here is, and this is version 9, so this has the double-sided setup, but we're going to keep it simple right here. We're going to deal with it on one side at a time. So let's say, here's my blank, and it's 5 inches wide by 12 by 1.1. And the reason I made it thicker is because I like to put a facing step in there for a couple reasons. One, that I know exactly how thick the material is. Sometimes when you're doing two-sided machining, that's critical. Okay, and the next thing is it creates a really, really flat surface, so the double stick tape holds real well. Now, let's look on down here. Basically, you can set the origin anywhere you want. I did it in this corner because it really makes it look better in simulation, but it could have actually been at the corner of the fixture board, in the middle of the blank. It makes no difference. Okay, so let's close that. All right, first thing we're going to do is face this, and I'll show you how I do it. This is actually a line that I draw. I want it to start here. I want it to drop down to depth before it hits the material. I want it to come through here, go all the way across, and when I'm finished, I have a beautiful flat surface. Now, this idea for the radius out here in the corner, it actually came from Fusion 360. If you look at their facing routines, the toolpath has those radiuses in the corner, and boy, when you watch it run on the machine, it's just really smooth. So I thought, oh, we might as well do that. So I typically don't use pocketing or any of that stuff anymore. I basically draw all the lines I want cut. Now let's open that toolpath up and let's look at it. Okay, I'm using an 1.5 inch fly cutter. Right, now here's something that's interesting too. Let me show you a little tip here that might help you. There's math built into VCarve Pro into these cells. So let's say, I don't know what that depth is. I know that the material is 1.1. When I get finished, it's going to be 1.0, and I hit equal, and it solves that for me. So that's where it can do the calculation for you. Where you see the green line or the green dot on the end, that's where it's going to start. And that's really all you have to do. So let's go over here and let's close this out. Now let's actually look at simulation, and let's see what happens here. First off, there's where the toolpath is going to be. It's going to start down here, and let's just run it. Cutter's going to come down. That's going to give me a beautiful flat surface. Right? Now, the next thing we're going to have to do, remember, we've already got on our fixture board down below, we've already got holes down there. And if you remember, if you were thinking about that rectangle, they're in the northeast corner and the southwest corner. But what happened, you don't, at this stage on the back side here, we don't do that. They have to be mirrored or they don't line up when you flip them. Now, let's take a look at that. Okay, let's go back over here. Let's go up to our layers. Turn out, there's our pins, all right? So now, right now, this is pretty much what you have down below on the table. All right. In other words, if we look down on that fixture board, that's where the holes are. Well, that's not going to work. And the reason is because when I flip this over, they're not going to line up. So let me show you how you fix that. First thing that you're going to do is we're going to come over here. Now, there's 3 pieces of geometry. I actually drew this rectangle out here. There's also, actually, let me turn that rectangle on. All right, now there should be a line here. I'm going to hold the shift key down. Okay, and then all I have to do is, let's group those together. Now that becomes one object. It just makes it easier. Now how do I flip those? Well, here's how you do it. You basically select that. You come over here, and I want to flip them horizontally, and that's it. That's what makes it line up. So now I'm on the back side of this. When I machine those holes, when I flip it, they're going to line up with those pins. All right, and then what we do is let's go over here. And basically, I've taken a drill. Now, I've started, I want the hole to be a 1/2 inch deep. Remember, I've already taken off a tent facing, so I start at 0.1 1/2 inch deep. And all I would do is, let's see, we probably want to ungroup these. And then probably I'll just go in and select where I want the holes and calculate. And let's reset our preview. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to face it. And then we're going to drill our holes. All right. Now, notice where those are. So when that flips over, those will line up with the pins underneath that are actually in the northeast and the southwest corners. Now, obviously, if you're turning this over for some reason, there's some more machining on the back side here that you'd have to do first. But what I showed you here is basically how you make sure the front and back line up on 2-sided machining. I hope this helps you.